In this video, I'm going to get a little bit blingy today and color fill the roll marks on my Smith & Wesson shield. Now, I do like doing color fills, and I normally rock a red and a white, or just a white or just a red. But since I'm feeling kind of blingy and I want to do something different, I was down at the local hobby store and picked up a bottle of gold metallic, which I thought, I don't think I've ever seen this used for color fill on a firearm before. A little bit of gold bling. Not sure how the metallic gold is going to fill the roll marks and how well that's going to turn out, but I figure, well, I'll give it a shot and see. So what do we need for this project? Obviously you need the components that you're going to color fill. In my case, I'm going to do the roll marks on both sides of the slide, and I think I'm going to do the 9mm roll marks that are on the top of the barrel. You're obviously going to need some enamel paint. This is Testers, a couple dollars for a little bottle of that. Some non-acetone nail polish remover, which is what I recommend. You'll want to make sure that you clean the roll mark area thoroughly using a wax and grease remover or even an isopropyl alcohol. I've got Duplicolor wax and grease remover here, which I use for all sorts of painting projects, and it works fine for the firearm. Q-tips, if you feel so inclined. The last couple of rifles I did with Q-tips, I ended up, the Q-tips have a tendency to leave little cotton threads behind in the paint, and I have to go back in with the tweezers and pull them out. So I'm going to try something different this time. And if you've got a girlfriend or a wife, you're probably going to have something like this floating around your house, or she's going to have it, which you could probably commandeer from her. These are little round cotton makeup remover deals. If you don't have these, you can pick them up at any store. These, one side of them is textured and the other side is smooth. I did some experimentation with these and found that these do not leave any type of little threads or lint or anything like that behind. So I've never actually used these for removing the paint on a roll mark project, but I'm going to give them a shot. They look like they'll work. I did based on the initial testing. Also, if you're picky about stuff like me, I've got some latex gloves on, basically because I'm working with the wax and grease remover, I'm working with acetone, and to a limited extent paint, which might get on my fingers. Plus, the other positive by wearing some latex gloves is while you're handling these items, you don't get any of your oils from your skin onto the surfaces that you're going to be painting. So with that said, I've got the gold. You can use a little toothbrush, or you can use, like I've got these little sticks. You can use these because we're not technically painting, we're kind of dabbing paint on. And so I've already got my paint warmed up to room temperature. It's already shook up pretty well. Now this was kind of a toss-up. I was looking at a copper and I was looking at a gold, and both looked kind of interesting, but I elected to go with the gold. You know, I have a gold iPhone. I figured, well, you know, gold iPhone, gold Smith & Wesson Shield, I mean, they complement each other. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to start by making sure that you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out what makes more sense. I guess it makes more sense because I've got both sides to do. I've got to do one side and then flip it over. So I think what I'll do is I'll do this side that has this says Smith & Wesson, Springfield, Massachusetts, USA. Since I've already have my paint stirred and up to room temperature, I'm just going to try the dabbing method here. And I'm just going to go ahead and lightly apply the paint. I'm going to lightly dab the paint onto the surface. You don't want to pool it. You want enough to fill the roll marks. And what I've noticed is if I get enough paint on there where I cannot make out the letters of the roll mark, then I'm good. Because that basically means that the paint has filled up all of the roll mark all the way to the surface. So this is how I'm going to do this meticulously. And I won't make you watch it, so you kind of see where I'm going here. I'm going to complete this and then I'll come back. Okay, this took about, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, give or take. And basically I've got all letters filled in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that set up. I don't want to flip this over right away and you know, you run the risk of the paint running. So I need it to dry somewhat before I flip it over and work on the other side. Now, drying times of this paint varies depending upon temperatures. And you don't really want to wait, you know, a long time, you know, 6 hours, 12 hours, anything like that. You want it to set up and semi-harden, but you still want to be able to get in there with the non-acetone nail polish remover and remove the excess paint. So you want it fairly well set up, but you don't want it too well set up. If it's too dry, then it's going to take you a lot longer with the nail polish remover to remove the excess paint. So what I'm going to do is, before I flip this over, I'm probably going to wait 30 minutes at room temperature, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side, and then wait another 30 minutes, and then come back and start removing this. So this will give me about an hour drying time at room temperature. The other rifles I've done, I've waited 45 minutes to an hour, and that was adequate for the paint to relatively harden up, but not get too hard. So while I'm waiting for this, I'm going to go ahead, and I decided I'm going to do the 9mm logo on the top of the barrel, just for kicks. And of course, you know, if you do this and you don't like it, you can go right back in there with the nail polish remover, and you can start rubbing real hard down into the engraving, and you can remove all this paint. And anything that you miss, you can go back in with a stick pin or a needle and dig out the little leftovers. And God knows that I've done a lot of those. I've done roll marks, and then later on said, nah, I don't like that color. I actually experimented with some other colors that, actually some colors that my girlfriend uses for fingernails. I thought, well, this might be kind of interesting, but yeah, it didn't turn out quite as well as I thought it would. Now that's the other thing. You can use, if your girlfriend or wife has you know, a collection of fingernail polish, you can definitely borrow that, because that is enamel paint, and it will work quite well. Okay, got the 9mm roll marks on the barrel filled in with gold. And I'll be back after this is kind of set up, and I'll do the other side. Okay, just a small progress update. I don't know if this applies to all these different colors of testers, but it seems to me that the gold, when it starts to dry, it shrinks quite a bit, and I ended up going in and applying a second coat to get the paint to the top of these roll marks. So it's either that, or these roll marks, which they look like they're laser etched, are pretty deep on the slide. So As your paint starts to dry, keep in mind or keep an eye on it, and you may need to go back in and add another coat. Also, one thing that I use all the time working on small projects like this, or working with small parts or whatever, is I wear these are goofy looking glasses, but these are just they're magnifying glasses, and I believe these are a 3x magnifier. And the reason I wear these is because they allow me to see very, very small, minute details. And some of these roll marks are very, very tiny, and it's very easy to miss a little dot. Like, well, a good example, I believe this has USA on it, and there's a dot, 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 and I missed one of the dots. It's real easy to do, but you know, if you've got perfect eyesight, you may not need a pair of these glasses, but my eyesight's not as good as it was a few years ago, so these magnifying glasses you can pick up at pretty much any place. You can get these glasses at Walmart and Walgreens and so on, you know, for $5, $6, $7. So I always have a pair of these in my range bag as well as on my workbench. So that's where we're at now. I'm still, the clock's still counting. Put on another set of paint, or another coat of paint, and I'll be back once this dries. Okay, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes or so. I put one coat of paint on, let that sit for about a half hour, put another coat on, and let that sit for half hour, 45 minutes. I also, while I was waiting, I noticed that the bottom lock plate for the magazines are engraved as well. So I pulled off one of these and put a couple of coats of paint on that as well. This is obviously plastic, and what I did was on the reverse side, I went in with some of the acetone, or the non-acetone nail polish remover, and tested that on here to make sure that there wasn't any discoloration or any type of other problems with using that on this plastic. I'm not sure how well this is going to turn out, because this bottom floor plate here is kind of textured, so it might be difficult to get all the paint off of this without scrubbing on it. And once you start scrubbing, you start digging into the roll marks, and you end up taking out paint. So this may be a total bust. I figured I've give it a shot and see. So far, I'm going to start with the barrel here with the 9mm on the barrel. This, like I said, has been sitting for about an hour and 15 minutes now, and I've got everything up to room temperature. I figure if this doesn't work out, this will be the easiest one to redo and clean off. On the topic of wiping this down, I know I've had a few people ask me about if there's any special way to do this. Well, what I would recommend is when you're using, you know, if you're using a cotton swab like this, or you're using a Q-tip, and you're going to be wiping in a direction, I would recommend wiping in a direction that doesn't have texturing or anything like that. Like, this is not a good example, but on the slide, for example, when I'm going to go in and wipe on this, I'm not going to wipe in this direction, because you've got this ridged area here, and all that's going to do is collect paint. So I'm probably going to wipe this way, right off the edge, and that way it's easy enough to clean up the paint. So that would be my only other recommendation, is definitely don't wipe towards anything that's textured. And the barrel really doesn't have, I could wipe that in any direction, really. It doesn't matter. At least it doesn't appear to matter. Now on these little pads I have, one side's got a kind of a texture to it, or pattern, and the other side is smooth. So I'm going to primarily try to use this smooth side, and hopefully this doesn't leave too much cotton material behind. So in this situation, make sure we got this in frame. I'm just going to be going this direction and we'll see how this works. And I'm not going to be rubbing hard because the last thing you want to do is actually dig into the surface. So I'm going to be going over this lightly. You've got to give the acetone some time to dissolve the enamel. And you can see it is coming off. So one thing you'll want to do is rotate this surface. Once you start getting some paint on the surface, rotate to a clean section and start all over again. And of course I promised that I won't do the entire gun or the entire slide. All these pieces would be extremely boring to sit through it. I'll do a couple areas so you can get the idea, and then of course I'll come back and show you the finished result. So far this is working out just fine. Maybe what I'll do is I'll try the textured. No, I'm not going to try the textured area. It's too risky. I've got enough of these little pads. I'll just keep using the smooth area. If, for example, I screwed it up or I didn't like the color, then I might use the textured area, because the textured area would probably dig into those roll marks pretty easy. And this appears to be working out just fine. And maybe change my direction a little bit. And again, very, very light pressure. That looks pretty good. You see these roll marks are not 100% perfect. There's a little bit of, they're jagged a little bit in some areas, so that ends up not making your color fill look 100% perfect. But you're kind of, you're limited with the quality of the etching or the quality of your roll marks. So I'm happy with that. That looks good. That's a nice little upgrade. The gold looks pretty good too. It looks better than I thought it would. I actually thought the gold would be too metallic looking. Alright, so barrel's done. I'm going to do, I'll do one piece on the slide so you can see me do that, and then I'll show you, I'll do the base plate for the magazine, and then we'll call it good. And then I think this area has been drying the longest, so I'll show that. Excuse me while I want to make sure I get a decent grip on this. I don't want to be holding this. I don't want to be holding this and putting my fingers on this paint. So I'm going to hold it right like this and make sure that you can see it. It's in focus. And I'm going to do the same thing. I believe I'm going to pull it this way. This lettering that's down here, I'm not sure how that's been done. It's obviously white. I definitely want to stay away from that. I don't want to be rubbing acetone on that. The last thing I want to do is rub off half of that. That wouldn't look good. Probably wouldn't be. Acetone probably won't hurt it, but yeah, I'm not going to take any chances. And this side's been drying a little bit longer, so maybe this side's got about an hour and a half on it now. And I don't think you really need to worry if it gets if the enamel dries too much on you. The acetone is basically going to dissolve it, soften it up. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Hopefully not too long. I know these types of videos can be extremely boring if they're drug on and on and on. And I'm definitely trying to make a more speedy project videos when I do these. And probably what I'm going to do is I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit and do some of this off camera. Okay, this actually ended up taking a little bit longer, about 30 minutes. And I ended up having to rub a little bit more aggressively with these cleaning pads to get the paint off. So it's still a little wet, but that's what it looks like. I'm going to continue on and do the other side off camera, and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, about 2 hours later, I think I'm pretty much done here. I don't know if it's the non-acetone nail polish remover or that in combination with the tester's paint, but it seems that it takes a long time for this non-acetone nail polish remover to break down this tester so you can remove it. And you've got to scrub with something like this, and then you've got to migrate on and use Q-tips for the fine work, and then you got to kind of dig the paint out of all these little crevices. It's just very time consuming, and I'm going to probably on my next project I'm going to do a little bit of different experimentation, maybe try some actual nail polish, because maybe that'll work better with this type of nail polish remover. Anyway, the slide is still a little wet, but you can see the roll marks on it came out pretty good. And there's the Smith & Wesson logo on this side. Of course, it's still a little wet, and of course there's a little fuzz on it from Q-tips and these other pads. There's the 9mm barrel. Now, the bottom plate off the magazine, I would probably recommend you do not try to color fill the roll marks on that piece. As you can tell, I've got it soaking in nail polish remover. The texturing on this piece makes it extremely difficult to get the paint off. This whole bottom surface right here was covered with paint. I've got most of it off, and it's still soaking, and I'm working on it with a Q-tip. But this is taking quite a bit of time, so I'd recommend definitely, if you're going to do this project, stay away from anything that's got a texture on it. It just takes way too long to get the paint out of the texturing. So I'm going to wrap up this portion of the video. I'm going to put the gun back together, and we'll take a look at that once this is dry and I've got it back together. Okay, now that the color fill is completely done and I've got the shield reassembled, we'll just take a final look at the color fill and how it turned out. I like the gold. I was thinking that maybe the gold would be a little bit too metallic or a little bit too overpowering, but it's not. I think the gold is a good complement. The laser etched roll marks were very clean, filled very easy. Some of them were pretty deep. I had to put 2 coats of paint on it, but no problem there. And the last one. So in summation for the color fill, I think the majority of the problems I ran into was due to the fact that I let the paint dry too long. An hour is probably a bit too aggressive to let this paint dry. Of course, that depends on your environment. So keep that in mind if you're going to attempt a color fill project on your own firearm.